Kung Fu Panda 4 kicks off with Tai Lung wreaking havoc everywhere, but then we realize it's not him but the chameleon transformed into Tai Lung. While the workers were affected by the chameleon's rampage, Po was busy taking down a flying stingray. After defeating it, Master Shifu appears and says, "Po, we need to talk." Po brushes it off and goes to inaugurate his father's new noodle shop. At the restaurant, Po makes excuses for why the Furious Five aren't in the movie, and they even appear as life-size cardboard cutouts. To find out what happens next, stick around. Skadoosh! You're on the Cine Lovers channel, your source for cinema and animation in an even more fun way. Well, Shifu appears again, very angry, and tells Po that he won't be the Dragon Warrior anymore because now Po needs to assume Oogway's place and become the spiritual leader of the Valley of Peace. But Po couldn't care less about that. He just wants to beat up the villains and defend the people. However, Shifu insists he has no choice, and Po needs to replace Master Oogway, since he received the Staff of Wisdom from the turtle's hands at the end of the third movie. So the next day, they go to interview some candidates who put on a show, but Po doesn't feel any of them could be the new Dragon Warrior. The scene was kinda quick, but that's how it goes. Shifu and Po then chat under the peach tree about waiting for the universe's answer when you don't know what to do. So Po meditates there but can't concentrate, and soon a fox breaks into the palace trying to steal a bunch of valuable stuff. Po notices and fights her, and the fight scene is really good and well choreographed. Actually, all the fights in the movie are, and after a lot of fighting between the two, the fox named Zen gets caught. While Zen is being taken to prison, the guys who were attacked by the chameleon in the form of Tai Lung arrive desperate to warn Po about Tai Lung's return. He finds this super weird, and Zen drops some hints, implying she knows what's really going on. In jail, the two have a chat. Zen spills everything she knows about the chameleon, that it's not the real Tai Lung, and they strike a deal. Zen is released from prison, and in return, she helps Po find the chameleon. Shifu gets even more upset and disagrees with Po's actions. Meanwhile, Po's parents, Mr. Ping and Lee, are working at the restaurant, but Ping is really worried because Po is going after the villain, and Lee tries to calm him down. Meanwhile, some bandits are gathered bad-mouthing the chameleon, only to realize that one of these bandits is actually the chameleon, who reveals herself and beats one of them up, making them all scatter and bring more valuable items to her, like a tax they owe her. In the dead of night, Ping and Lee sneak out to find Po, showing that Lee is actually quite scared too, which is very strange because in the third movie, the guy is super brave. Don't forget to leave hashtag Kung Fu Panda 4 in the comments. That same night, Po and Zen end up finding a place called the Happy Bunny Tavern. The last thing there's a happy bunny, as the place is overrun by mercenaries who exploit the bunnies. Their goal at the tavern is to find an honest way to get a boat to take them to Juniper City, where the chameleon lives. But Zen ends up stealing some money from the owner and uses it to eat there and pay the ferryman. But soon everyone realizes Zen stole, and they brawl, food, bunnies, tables flying, those typical bar fights, until they manage to escape, with the ship's captain being a fish in the mouth of a pelican, a character I found sensational and very funny. During the journey, Zen reveals that in her childhood, she stole to survive, and that someone adopted her afterward, who taught her everything. After that, Po admits he knows nothing about being the spiritual leader of the Valley of Peace and ventures some wisdom advice. Po then has a vision that the chameleon wants to dominate everyone and cause massive havoc. After sharing the dream with Zen, they arrive at the long-awaited city, and Po falls in love with it right away. It was all different from what he knew, which was strange because it seemed like his first time in a big city, even though the second movie implies the city is quite large. Shortly after, he sees several posters declaring Zen is wanted, so the police find and arrest her, and Po tries to intervene to save her and gets arrested too. But they manage to break free, leading to one of the most well-executed chase scenes in animation, and Zen manages to lose the police by entering the drum instrument, which is a secret passage to the underworld where she lived, a place filled with thieves. In this place, they are not well received, not even by the boss Han, who knows Zen and took her in when she was little. The guys there were ready to attack them, but Po remembers he needs to be the spiritual leader of the Valley of Peace, so instead of fighting everyone, he gives some advice. Though not fully understood, it works, and they manage to stay there for a night. These pieces of advice are given by Shifu himself in the form of thoughts in Po's head. The next day, Po's parents coincidentally arrive at the same bunny tavern. Ping goes in alone asking if anyone has seen Po because he's his father and looking for him, but as everyone is nervous about Po, they capture Ping. Then Lee enters and pretends to be Po's teacher, threatening to beat everyone up if they don't release Ping and reveal where Po is. The plan works, and they get the information. This is one of the funniest scenes in the movie. Po and Zen reach the Chameleon's palace, and Zen realizes that Po is a good guy, and their friendship begins to grow. It happened quickly. It needed more time, a few more scenes, or, as I said before, another movie, for her to have redemption. But they managed to enter the palace, with the Chameleon's entire army on their tail. Finally, Po and Chameleon face off, but he falls into a trap, and Zen betrays Po, handing over the Staff of Wisdom to the Chameleon. Then things get crazy because we realize that the Chameleon adopted Zen, and that's why the armadillo was nervous because Zen lived with them and then betrayed everyone to stay with the Chameleon. Well, Po is super upset, but he doesn't give up. The panda breaks the ground and manages to free himself from the cage. Shortly after that, Zen comes to talk to Po, but it's actually the Chameleon in the form of a fox, and she throws Po off the cliff. The real Zen becomes sad because she developed a feeling of friendship with Po, and from then on, she begins to dislike her adoptive mother's actions. Po hangs onto a branch to avoid falling into the abyss, and one of the villain's henchmen appears and starts beating Po. Suddenly, Ping shows up out of nowhere and beats up the henchman. Then, when Po is almost falling, out of nowhere again, Lee appears and saves them both. This was really pushing it, the guy showing up literally out of nowhere and knowing exactly where Po was. Shortly after, the angry Chameleon takes the Staff of Wisdom and opens the portal to the spirit realm, and the first one she brings is Tai Lung, who arrives confused. He realizes that the Chameleon wants to steal his power, so he fights against all the henchmen. This is another scene with a surreal choreography, but then she suddenly drains Tai Lung's kung fu, making him weak and trapping him in a cage. Then she brings Kai and Lord Shin from the spirit realm, which makes no sense at all. I even made a video explaining their pathetic involvement in this movie, so click here for that. Besides that, she also brings some random villains that nobody knows. Anyway, then Zen tells Po that she wants to be on his side, doesn't want him to get hurt. They even fight each other because she's preventing Po from facing the Chameleon, but he doesn't care and goes anyway. So Zen recruits the Armadillo's gang to help Po. Inside the hall where the villains are imprisoned, Po sees them all there and talks with two random villains, even Kai and Lord Shin beside them, but at least Tai Lung gets involved and has a chat with Po, saying he doesn't know how Oogway trusted him to be the Dragon Warrior. Outside, Armadillo's gang, with Zen and Po's parents, were beating up the Chameleon's army. Going back to Po, he and the Chameleon face off, and she transforms into various villains and beats him up one after another. It goes on for a while until the Chameleon transforms into Po, and the fight continues. She ends up trapping Po, and now for them to continue, Zen had to step in, and Po lends her the staff. Imagine Zen and Chameleon against each other. Zen does well because she uses the move that Po taught her, which felt forced because Po taught a super powerful move to a thief, and they weren't even friends yet, and Po breaks free from where he was trapped, and together they defeat the Chameleon. He then returns power to all the villains, who approach him, and Tai Lung asks everyone to return to the spirit realm, which makes no sense, and then he and all the villains thank Po and bow to him. Kai, Lord Shin, and Tai Lung bowing to Po, and Tai Lung even gets redemption and acknowledges that Po really is a great dragon warrior. Tai Lung grabs the Chameleon by the neck and takes her to the spirit realm. Then Po decides and chooses Zen as the new dragon warrior. Shifu doesn't like it, but he respects the idea. And guess who shows up to train the fox? The furious Tigress 5, who literally made a special appearance and didn't have any lines. They only appeared to say they're in the movie, a total disregard for these characters. And the movie ends. Zen will be the new dragon warrior, but before her and Po, there was another guy, and in this video, I'll tell you who he is. And remember when I talked about the confusing appearance of the villains in Kung Fu Panda 4? In this video, I'll tell you the details about it, so click here, and thank you very much for getting this far. See you in the next Cine lovers. Goodbye!